My whole family has been super into business for as long as I can remember. Like, everyone's got some kind of business degree, and they've all worked in the business world forever. But the thing is, they always worked for someone else and never really did their own thing. So, when I decided to shake things up and start my own business, it was a pretty big deal. I was stepping out on my own, doing something none of them had tried before. I had this idea for a startup, something I was really passionate about, and I wanted to make a reality. I knew I needed some help, especially with finding people willing to invest money into my idea to help it grow. So I turned to my family for support. I specifically asked my uncle and my brother for a big favor. If they could find people to invest in my startup, I'd give them a part of the company. Honestly, I wasn't sure how it would go, but to my surprise, they came through with some amazing investors. And that was just the beginning. After they found investors, they didn't just step back and watch. They got really involved, throwing out ideas and advice, and really helping me build the business from the ground up. It was awesome to have their support and to see them get so into it. Fast forward a bit, and all that hard work paid off big time. Within just 2 years, my business totally took off. It was way more successful than I'd even hoped. And as the business grew, my family got even more involved. They started hanging around a lot, spending tons of time with me while I worked. It was pretty cool to see how something I started not only became a big success, but also brought my family closer together in a way we hadn't been before. So here's where things get even more interesting. I was over the moon because I love my family to bits, and seeing them get so into the business to the point of quitting their own jobs to join me was just amazing. I thought, wow, they're really here to help and grow together. Having people I trust so much working with me felt like hitting the jackpot. For a while, everything seemed perfect. Even the arguments I used to have with my brother just stopped. It was like our rocky relationship suddenly got all smooth and fixed up. I saw all of this as a super positive thing. I was really proud and happy, thinking it was all thanks to the business I started. It felt like the business was this magic thing that was making all these good changes in my life. But as it turns out, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. While all these good vibes were happening, something else was brewing that I didn't see coming. My family, the ones I trusted the most, were about to shake things up in a way I never expected. Wow. Looking back, I realized I was completely off the mark. Reflecting on it now kind of stings because I was so caught up in worrying about all the wrong stuff. I put all my trust in my family, right? They had me so focused on watching my back with everyone else. My friends, my girlfriend, even my employees. They painted this picture where anyone outside the family circle was just out to get me, to use me for whatever they could. It's wild because at the time, I wasn't swimming in cash or anything. Yeah, I was doing all right for myself, but it's not like I was at a point where I felt like I had to guard my fortune from everyone around me. And to be honest, most of the people in my life were making good money too, almost as much as I was. So the whole idea that they were all just waiting to take advantage of me seems so off now. It feels like my family somehow managed to brainwash me into believing that only they could have my best interests at heart, which just wasn't the case. That moment of realization hit me when things started to look really different. It was during the pandemic, a time that was tough for everyone, that I began to see my family's true intentions. We were having these online meetings, right? And that's when they started pushing back on my ideas. Ideas that I had come up with that had actually helped our company grow and succeed were suddenly being questioned and dismissed. It was bizarre because these were the same ideas that had gotten us to where we were. But now, all of a sudden, they weren't good enough anymore. And as if that wasn't enough, my relationship with my brother began to fall apart too. We were really close, and then we just weren't. The workplace, which used to be this safe haven for me, somewhere I loved being and felt proud of, started to turn into a source of stress. I mean, it was supposed to be the place where I could be creative and make things happen. Instead, it became a place that made me feel anxious and even caused panic attacks because of the tension and the negative vibes. It was like everything I had built and loved about my work was starting to crumble around me. It was a really tough spot to be in because my family members owned nearly as much of the business as I did. They used their stakes in the company to corner me in one of the harshest ways imaginable. During a meeting about how to cut costs due to the lockdown, which included letting some staff go because they weren't needed, my name came up. Yeah, you heard that right. My own name was on the table for discussion. My uncle, someone I had practically schooled in how this business works, argued that my brother was now the one running most of the show. So he suggested it would only make sense if my brother took over my role. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like a bad dream. And then, as if that wasn't shocking enough, my dad chimed in. He said I should either step down voluntarily or accept a demotion. I was dumbfounded. This wasn't just a professional betrayal. It was personal. These were the people I trusted most in the world, suggesting I was the one who should be cut loose. The very idea that I could be seen as expendable in the company I poured my heart and soul into creating was heartbreaking and surreal. That moment was a real punch to the gut. I was rendered speechless as I watched my own family, who I thought loved and supported me, vote me out without a second thought. It was like a light bulb moment, but the realization came crashing down hard and too late. So I made the decision to resign. Some might say I should have fought harder, stood my ground, but that's just not me. I couldn't see myself thriving or even being remotely happy in such a toxic environment. I needed to break free, to breathe, and rebuild away from all that negativity. So I took a leap into something new. I started working on a new project, which wasn't easy. It took years of my life, drained my savings, and pushed me to my limits. I even had to move houses to cut down on expenses, but I kept at it because I believed in what I was doing. Thankfully, all that effort wasn't for nothing. By the time the world was starting to open up again after the lockdown, my new business was ready to go. Starting over wasn't easy, but it taught me a lot about resilience and the importance of being true to myself. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I was in control and could build something positive without the shadow of family betrayal hanging over me. It's amazing how life can do a complete 180 when you make bold decisions. The new business didn't start showering me with profits right off the bat. It took a solid year before I began to see the fruits of my hard work. But from the get-go, it was clear that this venture was on a trajectory to outperform my first business. Finally, I felt genuine happiness again, surrounded by people I chose to be with, my new family made up of friends and colleagues who supported me through thick and thin. The moment I walked away from my old business, I also walked away from my biological family. To me, it was as if they ceased to exist. My mom, my brother, my uncle, my aunt, all of them became strangers to me. They watched me struggle and suffer, yet none of them reached out even once. It was as if they were all gone from my life just like that. This estrangement extended to the business we once shared. I completely cut off any interest or information about its well-being or progress. It was a clean break, not just from the people who hurt me, but from a past that no longer aligned with who I wanted to be and where I was headed. The discovery of my brother's resume among those shortlisted for a high-level position in my new company was nothing short of astonishing. It was bewildering to think that he, essentially a co-owner of what used to be our family business, would be looking for employment elsewhere. The situation was filled with irony and raised a whirlwind of questions in my mind. Why would he need another job? What had happened since I left? I decided that I had to be the one to interview him. I needed to understand the circumstances that had led him to this point. The day of the interview arrived, and when my brother walked into my office, the sight of him was startling. The stress and the years seemed to have taken a heavy toll on him. He looked as if he had aged far beyond his years in the short time since our paths had diverged. The moment he saw me, his reaction was one of sheer shock. Despite the surprise, he attempted to maintain his composure, an effort that spoke volumes about the complexity of emotions and perhaps the hardships he had been enduring. It was clear that this interview was going to be about more than just a job opportunity. It was a chance for revelations, for understanding what had transpired in the time we had been apart, and possibly for closure or a new beginning. So, I was in this really awkward situation where I had to interview my brother for a job at my new company. I tried to keep things as normal as possible during the interview, but deep down I was struggling. It was tough because all the bad stuff he did to me before just kept playing over and over in my mind. It was like watching a movie that you can't pause. And then, when we were wrapping up, I ended up saying something to him that he had said to me a while back. It was about how he might not be the best fit for this particular job, and maybe he should try for something a bit less fancy. Well, he definitely remembered me saying that, because he got super mad right away. He started saying how I was being really unfair and letting my personal feelings mess up my judgment. He was pretty upset, saying a bunch of stuff about how I was making a big mistake. I was like, if you don't like how things are going, you're free to leave. And guess what? He actually left. I didn't really think much of it until later when my phone went crazy. I mean, it was like everyone in my family decided to message me at once, telling me off for not hiring my brother. They were saying things like how he's way more talented than I'll ever be and how I was wrong to not give him the job. It felt like everyone was ganging up on me just because I didn't think my brother was the right fit for the job in my company. It was a lot to deal with, especially with all those messages coming in nonstop. So, things took another twist. My whole family started hitting me up, asking me to give my brother another chance at the job, even to help out with their company issues. Normally, I'd just shrug it off and move on. But then, my wife mentioned something that got me thinking. She pointed out that my brother has his own family to take care of, like his kids and his wife. That made me stop and wonder if I should look at the situation differently. But here's the deal. I really don't think my brother has the right skills or attitude to work at my company. It's not just about what happened before, even though that's hard to forget. It's about whether he can actually do a good job here. I guess you could say I'm worried my own feelings are messing with my decision. But then again, considering everything that went down, can you blame me? It feels like a tricky spot to be in. To add another layer to this whole mess, an old friend I grew up with, who knows both me and my brother pretty well, reached out to me. He used to work at the family company after I left, but didn't stick around for too long. He filled me in on everything that's been happening there since I walked away. Hearing it from him, someone on the inside, definitely gave me a lot to think about. Hearing from that old friend really opened my eyes to what's been happening at the company since I left. According to him, my brother, along with our uncle and dad, just started to take it easy. They seemed to think the company would just run itself without them needing to put in much effort. It's almost like they forgot that a business needs people to steer it and make decisions, not just sit back and watch. I can't help but think they really didn't appreciate the hard work I was putting in when I was there. It makes me wonder how they managed to get their business degrees in the first place. As they kept slacking off, it didn't take long for that attitude to spread throughout the company. When the people at the top don't show any interest or drive, why should the employees? So naturally, the employees started to care less and less about their work too. It's no surprise, then, that the company began to struggle. If nobody's trying to improve things or even maintain them, things are bound to go downhill. And that's exactly what happened. The company started losing money. It's a clear case of neglect leading to decline, which is pretty sad to see, especially considering it was a business I once poured so much of myself into. The situation at the company went from bad to worse, it seems. Not only were my brother and the others not putting in the work, but any money the company did make was being blown on expensive stuff like fancy cars. And from the sound of it, they're not even considering selling those to help the company out. My friend made a good point. It's not just about the business being in a tough spot. It's more about how it's being run. With leadership like that, any company would be heading for trouble. This whole mess has got me thinking about possibly buying the company. Imagine that. Taking it over, but making sure those idiots, as I come to think of them, aren't part of the deal. I need a clean slate if I'm going to turn things around. In the meantime, I put a pause on all communication with them. I block them so I can have some peace and quiet to sort through my thoughts and figure out my next steps. It's a big decision, and I don't need their constant messages distracting me or clouding my judgment. So yeah, that's the latest update. I got a lot on my plate trying to sift through everything and considering a move that could either be really smart or incredibly risky. But one thing's for sure. If I go through with this, it's going to be on my terms without the dead weight to drag it down again. Setting up that meeting must have been a bold move, signaling a potential turning point. Laying down your terms clearly from the start was crucial, especially stating that they would have no role in the company moving forward. It's interesting, though not entirely surprising, that their readiness to step away became apparent once money was mentioned. It speaks volumes about their priorities and perhaps confirms some of your suspicions about their motivations. This eagerness on their part to accept the offer, especially considering it wasn't a fortune, really underscores how little they seem to care about the true potential of the business. It's as if they saw the company more as a means to an end, quick financial gain, rather than a valuable entity with growth potential that could have been nurtured and developed over time. Their reaction must have been a mixture of validation and disappointment for you. Validation in seeing that your assessment of their commitment and vision, or lack thereof, was accurate, and disappointment in realizing that the business, which could have meant so much more under different stewardship, was so easily relinquished. Moving forward with the company under your control presents both a challenge and an opportunity. It's a chance to rebuild and redirect the business towards success, guided by a vision that values both the enterprise and the people it serves. This journey might also offer insights into your own capabilities, resilience, and the values you want to embed within the company culture. It's a significant step, but one that opens the door to reshaping the business into something that reflects your commitment, vision, and hard work. Getting my company back felt like winning a marathon that I didn't even realize I was running until the last mile. Imagine, for a moment, you had a treehouse, a special place you built with your own hands, filled with all your favorite things. Then, one day your cousins take over, and instead of keeping it cool and awesome, they kind of let it fall apart, not really caring about it the way you did. That's what happened with my company. My family had it, but didn't really keep it in tip-top shape. They thought it would just stay awesome by itself, which of course it didn't. So I saw a chance to get my treehouse or company back, and I jumped on it. I teamed up with my pal, the one who filled me in on the latest family drama and the state of the company. It's been quite the journey, but now we're co-owners, ready to clean up and bring back the magic. Buying the company back was no easy feat. Imagine trying to negotiate the rules of a board game in the middle of playing it, and everyone's trying to twist the rules to their advantage. That was what dealing with my family felt like. There were lots of under-the-breath comments and eye rolls, kind of like when you're forced to share your video game controller with a sibling who then pretends they're playing nice. But here we are. I bought the company back. And it's pretty surreal to see my family splurging on all sorts of random stuff they don't need, like someone winning a shopping spree and buying a lifetime supply of inflatable pool toys. But they don't even have a pool. And about them kicking me out before, saying I wasn't doing my part? Well, who's got the keys to the kingdom now? It's a strange twist of fate, but I'm not one to hold grudges. I'm just here, ready to roll up my sleeves with my friend by my side, and get to work on making the company shine again. It's going to be an epic cleanup mission, but hey, I'm all for it. Now for the top comments before the update. Only God can help them. Now, in TA, I don't think you need anyone's opinion on this situation. Your brother is an egotistical person. And even if you didn't give him a job simply because of what he did to you in the past, that is completely valid as well. Just a UOPENTA. But honestly, you should have looked into suing your family right then and there. But regardless, I don't think you're the a-hole in this situation. Story 2. So, I'm 16 years old, and I've got this best friend named Sarah, who's also 16. We've basically been inseparable since we were like 2 years old, which means we've been through everything together for 14 whole years. All through our school life, we've been in the same classes, sharing the good times and the not-so-good times. Sarah's kind of like a star in school. It seems like every guy has a crush on her. They're always going on about how she looks, especially her figure, which kind of made us both uncomfortable because, let's be honest, that's a weird and creepy thing to focus on. But if we're just talking facts, Sarah does have this sort of magazine cover look that a lot of people seem to admire. She's got that balance of being fit, but also has curves where society seems to expect them. Me? Well, I've never been the center of attention like that. I'm more like the person who blends into the background, which hasn't always been great for me. In fact, things got so tough with bullies at one point that I had to switch to a different school. It's weird how different our experiences have been, even though we're so close and pretty much like two peas in a pod in every other way. But regardless of all that, our friendship has been a constant, something solid and real amidst everything else that's been going on. Last year was super tough for me, especially because I was often picked on for being the fat friend in my group. Sarah, my best friend, knew all about it, but sometimes she'd say things that really didn't help. She'd talk about how she felt so fat that nobody would want to be around her, even though it was clear she was nowhere near fat. She even mentioned having anorexia and sort of bragged about it, which was really confusing and upsetting for me. At the time, I took her words at face value and believed she was struggling with anorexia because it seemed to become a big part of how she saw herself. After I moved to a new school, things started to change for me, including my weight. I managed to lose about 35 kilograms. That's around 77 pounds. Just to give you an idea, I was 5 feet 8 inches and weighed about 198 pounds, which is around 90 kilograms, and after losing weight, I dropped down to around 121 pounds or 55 kilograms. Sarah is the same height as me, 5 feet 8 inches, but she weighs around 143 pounds or 65 kilograms. I've got to be honest, the way I lost the weight wasn't something I'm exactly proud of. It's complicated, and looking back, I wish things could have been different, but well, it is what it is. I'm just trying to move forward the best I can. After months of hard work and not seeing Sarah in person, just staying in touch through texts and video calls, her birthday came up. She invited me over the day before her big party to have a smaller celebration with just her close family. When I arrived, Sarah's mom was totally surprised by how much weight I had lost. She was so used to seeing me heavier than Sarah, so seeing me in a completely new light made her react big time. She kept complimenting me, talking about how different I looked, and even Sarah's dad joined in. It was a bit much for me, and honestly, I felt super awkward about it. I tried to steer the conversation away from my weight loss, but it kept coming back. Sarah, on the other hand, was not having a good time at all. She seemed really upset throughout the day, and after I left, she sent me a text that hit me like a ton of bricks. She called me selfish and an asshole for overshadowing her birthday, accusing me of not caring about her struggles with anorexia. But the thing is, I never even brought up my weight loss. I did my best to change the subject whenever it came up because the last thing I wanted was to make her feel bad or steal the spotlight. It's tough because I think Sarah's reaction might be more about her own feelings than what actually happened. It seems like she's struggling with the fact that the roles have kind of reversed, and now I'm the one getting all this attention for my appearance, which used to be her thing. It's a tricky situation because I never wanted to make her feel upset or jealous. I just wanted to feel better about myself. Now for the top comments, NTA. But Opie, I just want to say that the fitness I ever was after losing a loved one and not being able to eat. It still blows my mind at all the compliments I receive, and I was truly at my sickest emotionally. So just keep in mind that people like this might not be good for whatever you have going on. Sarah doesn't sound like a real friend. I'd be blocking her and moving on from that toxicity, and I hope you're working with someone who is helping you to stay healthy. As for this situation, in TA it's sad. Sarah and her family are this focused on the child's weight. Please just focus on yourself. NTA sounds like she relished having a fat friend to make herself look good. Funny how she doesn't mind you not receiving attention. But now the roles are reversed. It's all your fault and not the fault of the people making a big deal out of it. It also sounds like her parents are probably very critical of her weight growing up, which also really sucks. Story 3. So I have this sister, right? We were pretty close once upon a time. Even had the same group of friends and everything. My best friend at the time was also super close to her. But things got really weird and bad when I was about 16. Here's what happened. My best friend started dating this guy who, for some reason, ended up liking me instead. I didn't even know about it. But then, out of nowhere, my friend turned super mean towards me. She started bullying me really, really badly. It got so out of hand that after just 2 months in the school year, I had to switch schools. Why? Because she told everyone some super private stuff about me. Stuff that nobody should share, like how I was struggling with an eating disorder and social anxiety. It was so bad that I had some really embarrassing moments at school, like on the very first day and during a big school event. It was a super tough time, and that's why my sister and I don't really talk anymore. Our relationship just hasn't been the same since all of that went down. So, after all that bullying started because of the guy and my former best friend sharing my secrets, things got even more intense for me. You see, the stress from all this drama would sometimes make me have really bad anxiety attacks. These were personal things my so-called best friend knew because, well, she was supposed to be my best friend. Instead of keeping it between us, she told everyone. Now about my sister. She decided to stay friend with this girl despite everything she did to me. When I finally got the courage to tell my sister how much this hurt me, she didn't take my side. She actually called me a controlling brat for even suggesting she shouldn't be friends with someone who treated me so badly. That's when it hit me hard. I felt like I didn't just lose a friend, but I lost my sister too. Our parents tried to step in, telling my sister to stay away from this girl, but my sister was adamant. She believed she had the right to choose her own friends, no matter what. They continued to be friends for a few more years, even after all the drama. My sister would even bring her to places where she knew I would be, saying she was allowed to bring her friend along. By the time their friendship finally ended, it felt like too much damage had been done. My relationship with my sister had changed so much because of all these things. Going through all that mess was a nightmare, honestly. It didn't just stop at the bullying. It kind of scarred me for a long time, and I ended up really resenting my sister for making me go through all of that. She tried to say sorry a few years back, but I wasn't ready to accept it or even listen. Fast forward to now, I'm getting ready to get married. I made it crystal clear to my parents early on that my sister wasn't going to be invited to the wedding. My brothers gave me a heads up that my parents seemed to be planning to talk about my sister in their speeches at the wedding. I had already tried talking to my parents about this, but they didn't take it seriously. They argued that they couldn't just ignore my sister's existence because, well, pretty much everyone knows I have a sister. I was straight with them. Yes, people know I have a sister, but they also know we don't talk anymore. I was firm in telling my parents that I did not want them to bring her up at my wedding. It's supposed to be a happy day for me, and I didn't want anything to bring back those bad memories. They told me I was being unfair, especially when she attempted to apologize. But I stopped her. We're now not on the best of terms. They think I'm unfair. Am I the a-hole? Now, for the top comments. If your parents can't celebrate your day without bringing up your estranged sister, maybe they shouldn't go either. Your wedding is not about her or about them or about whatever fantasies they have of forcing a reconciliation into. Parents don't necessarily have to give a speech. Like, it is typically just the best man and maid of honor who gives a toast. In fact, none of the weddings I went to had either sets of parents of the bride and groom giving a speech or toast. But I'm no expert on these things. I don't know why a speech toast at your wedding would even have any mention of your sister anyways. It should be about love, your two's relationship, and congratulations on your newest milestone together, etc., etc. If I was you, to prevent any potential drama, just do not let your parents be allowed to give a speech. NTA that day is about you, and you don't want them bringing you pain or drama. Explain to them that it's not about her on your one special day. And if they can't respect that, they aren't entitled to give a speech as much as it would break your heart than theirs. But it would just be hurting you for themselves.